She secretly married a slave. Then her father discovered the one secret he feared most. The entire plantation froze the moment Emma Whitmore stepped forward and confessed the impossible. "I married Jonathan." Silence swallowed the air. Her father, William Whitmore, stared at her as if he had seen a ghost. The wealthy plantation owner was feared by everyone. Men trembled when he raised his voice. Yet now, his face had turned pale. But it wasn't the secret marriage that terrified him. It was the man standing beside her. Jonathan Carter. The quiet slave William had barely noticed for years. Because hidden inside Jonathan's belongings was a collection of old letters, faded documents, and a name William had spent 20 years trying to bury. A name from his past. A name that should have disappeared forever. As William looked into Jonathan's eyes, his hands began to shake. Then he whispered 5 chilling words. "No, he can't be his son." And in that moment, everything changed. This is a story of forbidden love, buried secrets, betrayal, courage, and a truth powerful enough to destroy an empire. What began as a secret romance would soon uncover a mystery hidden for 20 years. The Whitmore plantation stretched across the countryside like a kingdom. Fields of cotton seemed endless beneath the hot southern sun. At the center stood the grand Whitmore mansion, where Emma Whitmore lived a life many people envied. But Emma was not happy. Unlike her father, she noticed everything. She noticed the tired faces of the workers. She noticed the fear that followed William Whitmore wherever he went. And she hated it. Many nights she stood at her bedroom window wondering how anyone could own another human being. One afternoon, while walking near the fields, Emma saw an elderly slave stumble and fall. Before anyone else reacted, a young man rushed forward. He helped the old worker to his feet and offered him water. His kindness immediately caught Emma's attention. The young man was Jonathan Carter. Quiet, respectful, different. Later that day, Emma accidentally dropped a book near the barn. Jonathan picked it up. To her surprise, he glanced at the title and smiled. "You like history?" he asked. Emma stared at him. Most people believed slaves could not read. Yet Jonathan spoke with intelligence and confidence. For the first time, she felt truly curious about someone. And that night, lying awake in bed, Emma found herself unable to stop thinking about Jonathan Carter. The next morning, Emma discovered something hidden inside the book Jonathan had returned. A folded piece of paper. And written across it were 3 words that changed everything. "Meet me tonight." Emma's heart pounded as she unfolded the small note again. "Meet me tonight." For hours she wondered whether she should go. It was dangerous. If her father discovered she was meeting a slave alone, the consequences would be terrible. Yet something inside her refused to ignore the invitation. That night, after the plantation had fallen silent, Emma slipped out of the mansion. Moonlight covered the fields in silver. Near the edge of the woods, Jonathan was waiting. For a moment neither spoke. Then Jonathan smiled. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Emma smiled back. "I wasn't sure either." From that night forward, they met whenever they could. Sometimes beside the river. Sometimes beneath the giant oak trees hidden deep in the forest. They talked for hours. Jonathan spoke about books, dreams, and places he hoped to see one day. Emma spoke about her loneliness and her growing doubts about the life she had always known. For the first time in her life, she felt understood. Weeks became months. Their friendship slowly turned into something neither could deny. One evening, while watching the sunset over the river, Jonathan gently took Emma's hand. The world seemed to disappear around them. "I love you," he whispered. Emma felt tears fill her eyes. "I love you too." But danger was growing closer. William Whitmore had begun noticing changes in his daughter. Her smiles. Her secret disappearances. Her distracted expression. One night, William stopped her in the hallway. His cold eyes narrowed. "Emma," he said, What exactly are you hiding from me? Fear rushed through her body. For a second she thought everything was over. But somehow she managed to walk away. That same night, Emma made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Standing beneath the stars, Emma looked into Jonathan's eyes and spoke the words neither of them expected. Let's get married. Jonathan froze, because hidden inside his pocket was a secret that could destroy the Whitmore family forever. And he wasn't sure Emma was ready to hear it. Jonathan stood silently beneath the stars. Emma's words echoed in his mind. Let's get married. For a moment, he could barely breathe. This was the dream he had secretly carried in his heart for months. Yet fear filled him as well. The secret hidden in his pocket felt heavier than ever. Still, when he looked into Emma's eyes, he saw only love. Nothing else mattered. A week later, on a quiet night deep in the woods, their wedding took place. Only a few trusted friends attended. An elderly preacher who opposed slavery agreed to perform the ceremony. The forest was peaceful. Moonlight filtered through the trees. A gentle breeze moved through the leaves above them. Emma wore a simple white dress she had secretly sewn herself. Jonathan wore his cleanest clothes. They stood hand in hand before the preacher. Tears filled Emma's eyes. I promise to stand beside you no matter what comes, she said softly. Jonathan squeezed her hand. I promise to protect you and love you for the rest of my life. The preacher smiled. Then by the power given to me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Emma and Jonathan embraced as tears rolled down their faces. For a brief moment, the world felt perfect. But they were not alone. Hidden behind a cluster of trees stood a man watching everything. One of William Whitmore's overseers. His eyes widened as he realized what he had witnessed. Without making a sound, he slipped away into the darkness. The newly married couple never saw him leave. The next morning, the overseer rode hard toward the Whitmore mansion. He burst through the front door. William Whitmore looked up from his desk. The overseer was breathing heavily. Sir, he said. What is it? William demanded. The overseer swallowed. Then he revealed the secret marriage. William's face turned red with rage. His hand slammed against the desk. A glass shattered on the floor. Then he shouted an order that terrified everyone in the room. Find Jonathan Carter. Bring him to me. Now! And while his men raced across the plantation, Jonathan sat in his cabin, completely unaware that a search was already underway. A search that would uncover something far more dangerous than a secret marriage. The Whitmore plantation exploded into chaos. William Whitmore's furious voice echoed across the property. Find him. Men on horseback raced through the fields. Overseers searched cabins. Workers stood silently, afraid to speak. No one had ever seen William this angry. Inside the mansion, Emma heard the shouting and immediately knew something was wrong. Fear tightened in her chest. The secret was out. Her father knew. Meanwhile, Jonathan was returning from the river when several men suddenly surrounded him. Before he could react, they grabbed his arms. Take him to the mansion, one of them ordered. Jonathan did not resist. Instead, he looked strangely calm, as if he had expected this day to come. Back at his cabin, the overseers began searching through his belongings. Most of what they found was ordinary. A few books, some clothes, old notebooks. Then one man discovered a loose floorboard beneath Jonathan's bed. Sir, he shouted. William rushed inside. The overseer pulled out a small wooden box. Dust covered its surface. The lock was old. William ordered it opened immediately. Inside were dozens of yellowed letters, property records, business contracts, a faded photograph, and a journal filled with handwritten notes. William picked up one document. As he read it, the color drained from his face. His hands began to tremble. The room fell silent. Another document slipped from his fingers and landed on the floor. The name written across the top froze his blood. A name he had not seen in 20 years. Thomas Carter, his former business partner. The man everyone believed had disappeared without a trace. William quickly opened another letter. Then another. Each page revealed pieces of a truth he had buried long ago. The overseers watched in confusion, but William understood exactly what he was seeing. This was evidence. Evidence powerful enough to destroy everything he had built. His fortune, his reputation, his legacy. Then his eyes landed on one final document. A birth record. William stared at it. His breathing became uneven. The paper slipped from his shaking hands, and for the first time in years, fear filled his eyes. He stepped backward and whispered words no one in the room understood. No. His voice cracked. He can't be his son. At that exact moment, Jonathan was brought into the mansion. William slowly turned toward him, the old letters still clutched in his hand. Jonathan looked directly into his eyes. No fear, no hesitation. Then he spoke a single sentence that made William's heart nearly stop. I know what you did to my father. The grand hall was completely silent. Jonathan stood facing William Whitmore. Emma stood between them, her heart racing. Outside, dark clouds gathered over the plantation. Inside, a storm of a different kind was about to begin. William gripped the old letters tightly. Where did you get these? He demanded. Jonathan met his eyes. My mother kept them hidden for years. Emma looked at Jonathan in confusion. What is happening? She whispered. Jonathan took a deep breath. Then he revealed the truth. 20 years ago, my father was Thomas Carter. The room fell silent. Emma's eyes widened. Thomas Carter was the missing businessman William had once spoken about. The man who had supposedly abandoned everything and disappeared. Jonathan continued. My father and William built a successful business together. They trusted each other like brothers. William's face hardened. Stop talking. But Jonathan refused. One day my father discovered money and property were being transferred into William's name. Emma slowly turned toward her father. No. Jonathan opened the wooden box. Inside were contracts bearing both men's signatures. Letters written by Thomas Carter. Financial records. And one final document. A sworn statement prepared by Thomas shortly before he vanished. He was gathering proof, Jonathan said. He planned to expose everything. Emma's hands trembled as she read the papers. Every page pointed to the same truth. William Whitmore had stolen his partner's wealth. Then Thomas Carter disappeared. No one ever saw him again. Tears filled Emma's eyes. Father, tell me this isn't true. William could not answer. His silence spoke louder than words. The truth was finally breaking through. Workers standing near the doorway began whispering. Soon the whispers spread across the plantation. Then into town. People who had respected William for years began questioning everything they thought they knew. Jonathan looked around the room. I didn't come here for revenge. Everyone stared at him. I came for the truth. William suddenly realized what was happening. The secret he had buried for 20 years was rising to the surface. His reputation was collapsing. His fortune was in danger. His empire was beginning to crumble. Then a loud knock echoed through the mansion. Everyone turned toward the front door. A county judge entered alongside several law officers. The judge held a stack of papers in his hand. He looked directly at William Whitmore. These documents require an immediate investigation. William's face turned completely white, because he knew there was still one piece of evidence nobody had seen. The evidence that could reveal exactly what happened to Thomas Carter. As the officers moved forward, Jonathan slowly reached into his coat. He pulled out a sealed envelope, the final letter written by Thomas Carter. A letter that had remained hidden for 20 years. And inside it was a name. The name of the person responsible for everything. Rain began falling outside the Whitmore mansion. Thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, nobody moved. All eyes were fixed on the sealed envelope in Jonathan's hand. The county judge stepped forward. "Open it." Jonathan carefully broke the seal. The paper inside was old and fragile. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. Then he began to read. "My name is Thomas Carter. If this letter is ever found, it means I was unable to tell the truth myself. William Whitmore stole our business, our property, and everything we built together. I have gathered evidence against him. If anything happens to me, let the world know who was responsible." The room became silent. Emma felt tears running down her cheeks. Jonathan continued reading. The letter described secret meetings, hidden transactions, forged documents, everything. By the time he finished, nobody doubted the truth anymore. William Whitmore's lies had finally collapsed. 20 years of deception ended in a single moment. The judge slowly lowered his head. "The evidence is overwhelming." The officers stepped forward. William looked around desperately. The workers no longer feared him. The townspeople no longer respected him. Even his own daughter could not defend him. His empire had fallen. Not because of enemies, because of the truth. Days later, the investigation officially cleared Thomas Carter's name. The stolen records were corrected. The truth became known throughout the region. People finally learned what had happened 20 years earlier. Jonathan's father was no longer remembered as a man who abandoned his family. He was remembered as a victim of betrayal. Justice had finally arrived. Late, but not too late. One evening, Emma stood beside the river where she and Jonathan had first shared their dreams. The sun was setting. Golden light danced across the water. Jonathan walked toward her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Emma smiled. "We made it." Jonathan gently took her hands. "There were times I thought we'd lose everything." Emma shook her head. "We never lost what mattered most." Jonathan pulled her close. For months they had faced fear, hatred, secrets, and heartbreak. Yet somehow their love survived. Not because the journey was easy, because they refused to give up on each other. They embraced as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon. For the first time, their future belonged to them. No more hiding. No more fear. Only hope. Years later, people still spoke about the fall of William Whitmore. But they spoke even more about Emma and Jonathan, the couple who chose courage over fear, truth over silence, love over hatred. Their story became a reminder that lies can survive for years, but they cannot survive forever. Eventually, the truth finds its voice. And when it does, even the most powerful walls come crashing down. Because real courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what is right despite fear. And real love is not measured by the obstacles it avoids. It is measured by the obstacles it overcomes.